And I was thinking, not a good time. English is weird, like the word mankind. Man isn't very kind at all, right? You ever think about that? No, I don't think about that at all, actually. Or like how breakfast is just when you're breaking your fast from the night. All right, that's enough. Where do you put your trash can when you have to throw it away? I'm changing the locks on the house. Just in time for fall, bear claws are a simple and light treat that are really easy to whip up. You can obviously make them entirely from scratch, including the puff pastry, but puff pastry is just one of those things that I'll almost never make from scratch because it's just not worth it in my opinion. It's kind of hard to make and it's time consuming, and the frozen stuff from the store is plenty fine. Plus, I just came out of surgery, so if you think I'm going to make my own puff pastry, then you have another thing coming for you. So I'm going to start by thawing those out for 40 minutes at room temperature. Meanwhile, we can make our filling, which you can make the filling as simple as just almond paste or marzipan. I still have a tube of it left over from when I made the Icelandic cinnamon rolls last year, and I've been trying to get rid of it, hence this recipe. Anyway, you can just stick logs of that into the puff pastry, but I'm going to liven it up a little bit first. So I'll break my marzipan into my stand mixer bowl. I'll let the paddle start to kind of break that down, and then I'm going to add in 50 grams or a quarter cup of sugar. Then, since I'm going to need an egg white later to coat these before baking, I might as well use the yolk in the mixture. That goes in, and then I'll gradually add in a half stick or 57 grams of softened butter. The moisture from these ingredients is going to help make this marzipan more spreadable. Oh, and don't forget to add a pinch of salt like I did later off camera. Okay, now that we've got our filling and once our puff pastry is thawed, we can start to build. You can choose to cut your puff pastry into 2x2 or 3x3 to make 4 or 9 squares. I went a little bit smaller bear claws, so I'm going with 9. Separate those and just simply start to spoon in the filling. You're going to want to leave a margin all around so this thing can seal itself, and you should probably put a little less filling than you think because it's really easy to overfill these. Foreshadowing for when I bake these, by the way. And to seal, you're going to fold these over themselves and press to seal. It's pretty intuitive. I thought I could accomplish this by hand, but I ended up just using a fork to crimp the edges. You don't want these breaking open in the oven. Also, after crimping, I'm going to take a paring knife and cut a few slits into the sealed side. Practically, this is going to be breathing holes for the puff pastry and what's going to allow it to open and expand in the oven. But visually, this is what gives the bear claw its name. When you fan it out, it looks like a bear claw. I'm repeating the same process with the other sheet of puff pastry, filling each of them and then sealing them and then crimping them and then cutting them. Those go onto a couple of baking sheets with parchment paper on top. And then I'll take that egg white I was talking about earlier. I added a splash of water and I'm just going to brush that over the tops of these. It's going to help them brown and keep the outside nicely moist. And since the outsides are sticky now, I can add a few sliced almonds on top for garnish. If you have some big, coarse crystal sugar as well, you can add that on top here. I don't, but I still want that sweet crunch on the outside, so I'm going to add a pinch of regular sugar. You won't see it, but you will taste it, so it's worth it in my opinion. I load that into my 400-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes or until these are browned. And as you will see, maybe a liquidy filling like this wasn't the best idea because it's all leaking out. I can't say for sure if having a more solid filling like just the almond paste would have been better, but if you have any tips for helping this kind of stuff stay inside when it's baking, let me know. Either way, some of the filling is going to stay inside and you're still going to taste it, so it's not a big deal. I'm going to let these sit for a few minutes until they're cool enough to handle. I'll break off the excess melted filling and then I'll put these onto a serving plate. In the meantime, I'm making an optional vanilla glaze, but I don't really think it's optional. I'm doing 60 grams or a half cup of powdered sugar, a few drops of fresh lemon juice if you have it. I always add that to my glazes. A splash of vanilla extract, and just enough milk to make this a glaze. Always do tiny splashes at a time to make sure it's the right consistency. I want it to be pretty thin, but not too thin. It's not like a donut glaze, but I do want it to be able to drizzle over the top. Something like this consistency for reference. Using a spoon, I just drizzle that over the top, and that's it. Bear claws are a light and fluffy dessert or snack. I think they pair well and contrast well with the other fall desserts that can honestly get pretty heavy. Great to make for your next party when you're in a pinch and you don't know what to make last minute. Let's taste test. The taste test is back in the OG spot because I don't have the strength right now to take my chairs off the table, but I do have the strength to drink vanilla milk. I'm honestly not sure if I've had bear claws before, like at bakeries or something. I tend to opt for donuts, but these are a lot easier to make at home if you're in a pinch. Also, sorry about my voice. There was a tube stuck down my throat while I was under anesthesia and I'm getting it back, But anyway, even though most of this filling melted out, I think a lot of the flavor is still gonna be inside. If you have any tips on how not to let it melt out, then let me know, but let's try this. Cheers. Not bad if I do say so myself. I mean, I guess I wish more of the filling stayed inside. You can still taste it, but it's kind of missing that. But the puff pastry is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, as it should. The flakiness and tenderness of it just kind of makes this dessert what it is. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of flavor inside. I just feel like knowing how much leaked out, how much I'm missing. I did save the pieces that melted out, so let me try that. kind of tastes like the brown cheese that I had in Norway. Interesting. I might take back what I said then, because that stuff is not super deeply flavored. I think it's just supposed to complement these. So I really don't think this is missing too much. I think this is what it's supposed to taste like. It's supposed to be light, but also filling and something good to eat around fall time, but not one of those gut bombs that's gonna make you bedridden for the rest of the day. This was an experiment that came out because I just had some marzipan to get rid of. I feel like the same could happen if you have some puff pastry to get rid of. This is very well worth doing. You don't have any like rising time or waiting time if you're not making the puff pastry from scratch. Something that you can whip up quick on a whim, kind of like I did today. So try this if you ever get the chance. Thank you all for watching. Be blessed, and I'll see you next time. I got too used to sitting down while I'm eating. I want that again.